Hello, welcome. In today's episode, we'll be covering basic yet crucial king and pawn endgames. We'll start from the rule of square, we'll move into the basic opposition, we'll talk about different pawn breakthroughs, and at the end of the episode, I'll talk about some exceptions. So let's get started with the famous rule of square. In this position, black plays king g6, and you might be wondering whether your pawn from a3 is able to get here in time. And you might be calculating using this old formula. I go there, he go there, I go there, and he goes there. Fortunately, there is a lot of easier solution. Of course, you'll be able to calculate this, but under time scramble, and when, for example, your opponent have 2 pawns and you have 3 pawns and you have other things to calculate, it might be better to use a simple solution called the rule of square. Let me present to you how to use it. You need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves in order to promote. So we are drawing a square. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the square of the pawn. And if the black king would be in the square, this is a totally drawn position. But as you can see, the black king is outside of the square. So as you can see, we can play a4, king f6, a5, king e6, a6, king d7, a7, king c7. And in this position, our square is only one move, and this is our simple, very small square. And as you can see, black have no way to stop our pawn from promoting. We are just going to make a queen and simply win this game. But if we would lose only one move and play, for example, king h2 here, after king f6, black is in our rough square, and black is able to draw a4, king e6, a5, king d6, a6, king c7, a7, king b7, and this is a totally drawn position because you were able to get this pawn. So rule of square is a very important thing to keep in mind when you are calculating complex or simple king and pawn endgames. And now let's move to another very important factor called the basic opposition. Now let's talk about the opposition. It is a key concept in king and pawn endgames. It occurs when two kings face each other on the same rank, file, or diagonal with an odd number of squares between them. The player who does not have to move is said to have the opposition, because as you can see, after king d5, we are getting the opposition and gaining control over these key squares in front of our king. The another example is that if, for example, the king would be here, and we would move to f5, we would also gain the opposition. And gaining the opposition will allow us to outflank the opponent. For example, king e7 and king c6. And now we're able to make a maneuver called outflanking to simply create a space for our pawn and simply promote it to a queen and win a game. Then there are different types of opposition. It can be direct, distant, or diagonal. And in this episode, we'll focus only on the simple direct opposition because the other are much harder to explain, and I don't think you need them at the beginner or entry intermediate level. It's of course a fundamental tool, and this is, I think, the most important theoretical endgame concept to know in all of chess. So we have looked at what happens if they play king e7. But what if they play king d8? Now we can simply gain a position another time via king d6. And if they go there, we are simply going there, here, here, and this is the same stuff. We are able to promote the queen. They can try some tricks. They might go there, we go there, they go there, and they might go there. But we are simply just able to promote the pawn once again, d6, king e6, and a very important note, not d7 here, because after d7, king d8, this is a stalemate. As you can see, this is a stalemate, but here we have to play king c7, just simply getting our pawn promoted to a queen. We can also go from the black perspective, because the opposition sometimes, if not played properly, actually opposition is a winning position, but if, for example, the other player screws something up, you might be able to handle a draw. For example, they play something like king e5 in this position, and you can get the opposition by playing king e7. In this position, you cannot play king c7, and you might ask why I gained the distant opposition. But here, white is just able to promote the pawn. and the opposition will not always help you to achieve a draw. King e7 is the direct opposition, and in this position you have a very simple draw. After something like pawn here, you are just going to stick your king in front of the pawn. After something like here, you are just going to back up here, and this is a stalemate I have presented, and you are able to save a draw. If, for example, something like king e5, king here, and king d5 here, you are again getting an opposition. They might try to outflank you, but it's not possible. You are not going there, but you are going there, keeping the direct opposition here. For example, king, I don't know, here, and you are able to even step and attack this pawn. King c4, you are going there, keeping your position d5, you are staying behind the pawn. King d4, you are going king e7, for example, king c, and you are going king d7. And this is a totally drawn position. And I hope now you know, at least from a theoretical standpoint, how to draw and win the very, very simple oppositions. And opposition is a very, very important concept, and I strongly recommend and advise to you train it on, for example, chess.com endgames. Here you can just simply select pawn and winning king and pawn endgames, and you are able to practice, for example, that kind of position against the engine. So as you can see, you might be wondering, wait, I cannot make any pawn, any king moves. But you can just play a waiting move, d5, and we are able to simply promote our pawn. And this is how you can just simply practice your opposition and all of endgame's skills. Now let's move to very important pawn breakthroughs. Now let's look at this position. This is a total draw if whites play properly. For example, h4, we have to give up this weak pawn, but we are able to stop white pawns from promoting. It's of course a draw. But here white can play a very common mistake, especially at lower elos, called g4. And here we are going to play g5. And this is a technique known as the deep freeze. As you can see, white is unable to play g4 because we are simply making a queen, and the g4 pawn is blocked by our pawn. So we have managed to block two white pawns using our one pawn. And this is, as I have mentioned, the deep freeze technique. After something like king c3, king c5, if they try to get this pawn on g5, we are simply going to make a queen, stop those connected plus pawns, bring our king, and simply win this position without any problems. They can try king c2, and we have to be careful here, because after king b3, if we will play something like king e3, this is again a draw, because we are going to make queen in the same time, as you can see here, here, and here, and this is a drawing endgame. So we have to play king e4, because now after h4 we are just able to stop this pawn from promoting. So as you can see here, we are going to play king f4, here we are going to play king g3, here we are going to play here, here, simply taking, and now after something like king here, we are going to play king h4, getting this opposition, king here and here, and of course you have to know how to win this. As I have presented, you are just going to simply outflank them, king h1, king h3, here, 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 here. This is a stalemate. So be careful, because this is a very important trick. Whenever the king is on h1, or a1, or a8, or h8, so whenever the king is in the corner, you have to be careful to not to stalemate the enemy king. So just simply play king g3, and again outflank the king here, play this, 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 and now play g2, that they can escape, and now we are going to make a queen. So this is a very important thing to remember. Whenever the king is in the corner, you have to be careful about those stalemate ideas. And now let's move to another very important tactical trick. Now this is a very instructive moment. You can see how the theoretical knowledge will combine with the tactical skills. Here white is winning, but only if they play the move b3. Why so? Because after king g5, black is able to play b3. And it turns out that white is unable to stop black from making a queen. After something like a takes b3, c3, another brilliant move, and after b takes c3, a pawn will become a queen, and after b takes a4, the b pawn will become a queen. So white have to stop it by playing b3 by themselves. And after a takes b3, you have to remember, do not recapture the c pawn, because this pawn will become a queen. but rather with a pawn. The same goes for a takes. We have covered after here. We have to recapture with this pawn, and after here we have to recapture with what pawn? With c pawn, because after recapturing with a pawn, this pawn will become a queen. So after you have managed to gain those exchanges, gain the winning position with white, you have to enter with the opposition. But keep in mind that after king h8, g7 is a draw, as I have mentioned in the deep freeze chapter. So we have to go for the other pawn. We are going to simply get this pawn here, and you are going to simply gain here. Actually, you don't even need to have the opposition, or maybe if you just to simply remind you how to get the opposition, here, 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 and you are going to just simply go there and simply promote the pawn. Now let's move to some exceptions, and this will be the last chapter of the things you need to know to excel your endgames to around 1000launches.com. I have to disappoint you. You will not always be able to use your opposition knowledge, because in this position, even though you have a position, whenever your pawn is on A or H rank, so this is a rook pawn, you are unable to win this position, because after king g5 you are unable to outflank the king, because you are simply unable to leave the chessboard. And this is going to be an easy draw, no matter how black will move, because you have simply no way to win this position whatsoever. Because like here, this is going to be always a stalemate and always a draw. So whenever a pawn is on A or H rank and the king is able to go in front of the pawn or close to the pawn, the enemy king, this is going to be a draw. So this is all you need to know to accelerate your endgame level to around 1000launches.com. In the future I will be doing some more advanced endgames. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe and comment your thoughts, and see you in the next one. Bye.